Germany declared war on France on the 3rd of August 1914 and then brought Britain in as well by invading Belgium on the following day. Britain rapidly mobilised, calling up reservists to fill out the British Expeditionary Force, the famous BEF. They rushed to northern France and then marched into Belgium, as shown here in red. The French 5th Army was on their right flank, the French 84th Territorial Division on their left, both shown in blue. Meanwhile, the Germans had captured the fortress of Liège and were sweeping through Belgium, following their famous von Schlieffen plan, as shown here in green. On the 22nd of August, cavalry patrols from both armies met near Mons, not far from Waterloo. Neither army was really aware of the location or the strength of the other, so neither was expecting a major battle. But a major battle it was to be on the 23rd, along the banks of the Conde Canal near Mons. Here the legend of the BEF was born, with rifle fire like machine guns. True? Maybe. I note that the Australians at Gallipoli said exactly the same thing about the Turkish rifle fire at the landing. Mons was a shock to both armies, but especially to the British. They had not fought a major European power on European soil since the Crimean War, some 60 years prior. Their officers had cut their teeth on small colonial wars, typically in brigade strength. Hence their coordination at divisional and higher levels was rusty. For their part, the Germans had practiced corps-level manoeuvres, but even so they did not react fast enough to prevent the British escaping and starting the long retreat to the Marne and eventually to French and British victory. Here you see the complete British position as it's laid out along the Conde Canal from Mons, which we're just passing, all the way along past the coal mines, through the willow beds until eventually we reach Conde on the left-hand edge of the map. This playtest map and the production map is actually two standard 22 by 34 inch maps laid side by side. The complete historical scenario uses both maps, as does the meeting engagement, but there are several optional scenarios that just use a single map, so you don't need to lay that up. However, the full deployment of the British Army dictates this long linear setup. Zooming in here, we can see the critical salient just north of Mons. It was here that the Germans first attacked. On the right, with the red band, is the 4th Middlesex, belonging to the 8th Brigade. On their left is the 4th Royal Fusiliers, with the blue band of the 9th Brigade. They're spread out from Nîmes through Mons. You'll notice that in all cases they're just guarding the bridges. The canal itself was unfordable, so the Germans were forced to attack only across the bridges. What appears to be a very thin line there is therefore more secure than it would appear. The British only held the canal with platoon pickets. The main line of defence was further back here on the higher ground. That was the standard British doctrine of the day, to have a light force forward and then the main line of defence back. The main problem with the British defence was that their artillery is back here behind these slag heaps. Now these slag heaps are 60 to 70 metres, 200 feet high. Belgium itself is fairly flat and the contour intervals are only 10 metres. So these slag heaps definitely block line of sight, and if you put your artillery on the wrong side, then it is useless. It was the beginning of the war. The British had not fought a battle on the continent for maybe 60 years, and they made some mistakes, especially with their artillery. Over here on the left flank, we can see the cavalry division. In this case, it's the Household Regiment, 3rd Hussars, backed up by 2 batteries of the Royal Horse Artillery. Another cavalry brigade, another cavalry brigade. Then way out on the left-hand flank is the 19th Brigade, which was attached directly to the BEF. Quite far forward, we can see a very small cavalry screen. Each British infantry division had 1 squadron of cavalry and a company of cyclists. Here they put forward to force the Germans to deploy. These can pop up at any time. They're not very strong, but they are useful to hold a crossroad for perhaps a turn. This dashed red line on the map separates the British 1st Corps and 2nd Corps. 1st Corps belonged to General Haig and 2nd Corps to Smith-Dorrien. We zoom out, you can see that 1st Corps is holding a refused flank. Haig was actually ordered to help fill in the right-hand flank of Smith-Dorrien's 2nd Corps and defend it there, but he, in essence, ignored the order, and Smith-Dorrien was left hanging on the day of the battle. General French, in command of the BEF, was absent, was not called back by his Chief of Staff, and so there was no real effective corps or divisional control on the day, which led largely to the British being pushed off their position. The Germans enter along the northern map at these named entry points. They all come down on the roads. The first attack occurs on game turn 1 on these two roads here from Casteau and Tierces by the 9th Corps, and they slam straight into the salient position. The Germans are attacking effectively on echelons, so game turn 1 they arrive at Casteau Tierces, a little later Pave, Jourdis and Hershey's, and then all the way later in the day they appear way here on the western flank. And that is an overview of the historical Battle of Mons. The game includes a 2-map historical scenario, several 1-map scenarios, plus several 1- and 2-map hypothetical meeting engagement scenarios that feature cavalry with active manoeuvre on an initial empty map. Mons 1914 The Mad Minute is available for pre-order from gmtgames.com.